In this video, we are going to learn how to pass a function as an input to another function in C programming language. Generally, we pass some data as an input to some function, but we can pass a function as an input to another function, or we can return some function which generally represents some logic as a return value from some function. So the function which is accepting a function or returning a function is called as higher order function. Now the question is, what is the use of that passed function? So generally, the higher order function is going to use that passed function at some point. So for example, we have certain steps of higher order function. So at this point, it's going to call the function which was passed as input while the call to the function was made. Now let's understand using one example. So we have one function called print numbers and another function called select even. So this print numbers is called as higher order function because it is accepting another function as input, and the select even is a function that we are passing as an input to this print numbers function. We can see it in diagram. Here you can see the matching diagram. So we represent this print numbers using this circle and select even function as this function. And this print numbers function is accepting two parameters. One is array and the other is the function pointer. Let's understand what will be the type of function that we are passing. So generally, when we pass an address of integer data, we need to have integer pointer to hold it. Same if we pass float data, we should have float pointer. Now here what we are doing, we are passing a function. So we should have function pointer. So let's understand the signature of this select even. Select even is taking one integer as input and it is returning integer as output. So that integer we use to represent true or false. 1 represents true value, 0 represents false value. Now because the select even function is taking one integer input and it's returning one integer value, when we define the function pointer, we need to write those matching input and matching output. So here this is the syntax to define function pointer. We write asterisk in front of name. The name can be arbitrary, we can use any name. Then we enclose it in the round brackets. Then right hand side we specify what that function will accept as input, and the left hand side shows what that function is going to return. So it should be matching. Now let's see that how to pass any function as input to this print numbers. So in the main function you can see that we have declared one array with certain elements. Then what we want to do is we want to print all even numbers. Now generally we can write that logic here in the print number itself, which is going to find out whether number is even, it's going to print it. But we have externalized that logic so that if at one point, if I want to print all even numbers, I can supply that logic as input to this print number function, and then that function will print all even numbers. At some other point, if I want to print all odd numbers, then same print numbers function I can use, and I'll supply select odd function as an input to this function. So passing a function allows us facility of customizing the logic. We can pass our own logic and that logic will be used at some point by higher order function. So this is what is happening. We are passing array and function as an input to this print numbers function, and at some point, for example at this point, the print numbers function is calling this select even function. Now when this print numbers function is calling this select even, it can pass some input to that function, and this select even function can return some value as an output to this print numbers function. So that is what we are doing here. We are repeating a loop and we access each element present on index and we pass that value as an input to this function called selector. which is basically referring to the select even function, because if you see here on line number 20, we have passed address of select even. So selector will refer to this select even. So for each value that is present in the array that we have specified here, we take value on index starting from 0, and for each index we select a number, we pass that number to the selector function, which will be supplied here, and this function is going to check whether number is even. If number is even, it will return 1. If number is odd, it will return 0. So here the result of the selector function we are comparing with 1. If it is 1, then only we print number. So in this way we can define a function only once, and at whichever point we need customization, that customization we can supply using some other function as an input to this higher order function. Now let's run this program. So you find that for this input we get result as 4, 12 and 20. So these are the only numbers which are even numbers in supplied input. So you can see here we have supplied 1, 4, 5, 7, 9, 12 and 20. Out of this, the print numbers function is printing only even numbers. And that is the reason we get this as an output. So ability of any programming language in which we are able to pass a function as an input to another function, that way of programming is called as functional programming. Languages such as Java, JavaScript and Python, they also support functional programming. So what is functional programming? Functional programming allows us to pass or return a function as a value. So generally this function as a value is represented as a lambda expression. So in C programming also we can pass a function as an input to another function so that we can customize our logic. So new programming languages support this concept using functional programming. Thanks for watching and happy learning.